Welcome to a sip of Torah. I hope by now everyone has had a good Yom Noraim season, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Simchas Torah. And now we're in the month called Mar Cheshvan. Mar because it doesn't have any Yom Tovim. But in truth, we really have what we say in Zmiris, Rishon Hu L'Mikrai Kodesh. The first one that's mentioned in Parshas Emor, amongst the Mikrai Kodesh, the holy convocations, the holy events that we have on our calendar, we have every week, every seventh day. 1/7 of our lives, Rabbi points out, is spent living Shabbos. So I think it's worthwhile now that the Yom Tovim, which we've put so much emphasis and so much effort into preparing and living over Chodesh Tishrei, now that they're over, now we can turn attention to the holy day of Shabbos, which we have every week. Additionally, another reason why it's worthwhile for us to speak about Shabbos is because recently, with the events in Eretz Yisrael, many of the Rabbanim, at least two of the Rabbanim who I know, have made an emphasis on Shmira Shabbos and observance and living and proper celebration of Shabbos in response to the incident. One is Meir Shiva Moshe Zev Katzenstein. He told in a public address to the Eilim, to the assembled masses, that we have to step up our Shabbos, we have to take our Shabbos to the next level. And Rabbi Miller told me from Rabbi Silverstein, a leading Rav in Eretz Yisrael, that he encourages Kil to learn 2 halachos of Hilchos Shabbos every Shabbos. So with this added emphasis on Shabbos, I thought it would be appropriate for us to speak about this topic. I want to thank my chaver of Eli Miller, Abachar Eli Miller, for helping me prepare this year. This year will be, we're going to give over from Rabbi Naftali Beer, the Rosh Kollel of Boston. He gave a shir on Shabbos Menucha on CD that I listened to in the summertime, and I thought it was very worthwhile to give over. So most of the ideas presented are going to be from him, from Rabbi Naftali Beer of Boston. Rabbi Beer starts off with a question from the Ramban. The Ramban says in Parshas Kedoshim, Kadesh Atzmacha B'Mutaloch, that the way to achieve Kedusha is by separating oneself from that which is permitted to him. Like the Ramban speaking about not being overly indulgent in excess in food and drink, for example. So Rabbi Beer is wondering, if that's true, the way to achieve Kedusha is by separating oneself to some degree, then how is it possible that Shabbos, which is called Shabbos Kodesh, the holy day of Shabbos, how is it possible that on Shabbos we are told to increase our physical delights, food, drink, relationships? I think maybe also we could include like nice singing that we have in the shul, other delights. Why are we told to increase this if, according to the Ramban, the way to achieve Kedusha and holiness is by withdrawing oneself to some degree from these pursuits? Do we have any answers to this question? Before we continue, I would like to thank everyone for coming, and I would like to thank my mom for coming in on Zoom, my dad for being in person, and my grandma for coming in from Connecticut. So, Rashi and Parshas Bereshis speaks about what exactly did Hashem create on the 7th day. Hashem rested on the 7th day, but he also created something. So Rashi says, Hashem created Menucha. So Menucha is a term, if we look throughout davening, comes up very often, comes up in Shabbos, Berachos Kriya Shema, comes up Shabbos Mincha, comes up in Berachos Hamazon a couple times. So what exactly is this topic of Menucha? Rabbi Beer gives a definition to it. Rabbi Beer says that Menucha is the gift of experiencing serenity and tranquility. And it's coming into contact with one's essence. Now, this element of Shabbos Menucha may have been what drew some of us to Yiddishkeit. I can say from first-hand experience, when I went to UMass Amherst, and I was part of the Chevra, part of the group there, and they were singing Shabbos Miros, even though I didn't know specifically what the words were saying, but I could just feel something inside of me coming alive. And from that, I started to make certain changes in my life. Rabbi Beer says that many people have come to his home. He's done a lot of work with Brandeis, and many people have come to his home, enjoyed a Shabbos meal, and felt something inside of them that they made them want to make a change to their lives, want to adopt something more to bring into their lives more of what they experienced at that Shabbos meal. I'll open up the floor if anyone has any experiences of Shabbos Menucha that they would like to share.
No, I was just going to say, it was kind of ironic. I was actually preparing myself for the learning I do in the evening with my Torah mates. We're learning Sefer Tehillim. And at the end of Tehillim Test, it spoke about this topic exactly. It says that particular Tehillim is one that usually ushers in Shabbos, and that it speaks about the tranquility of Shabbos, providing us with a glimpse of eternal peace, messianic times, and of the world to come when Hashem's blessings will be completely fulfilled. I just thought it was kind of like a perfect fit-in for what you were talking about today.
Thank you for sharing. Chazal said that Shabbos is Me'in Olam Haba. It's like 1/60th of the taste of the world to come, which is the other topic we'll speak about more today.
Very nice.
I'm just going to say that when I was 17, I had spent a Shabbos in Crown Heights, and a family that I was having a Shabbos meal with during Birkat Hamazon would bang the table on the part that the Shulchan Hazeh, and it stayed with me all these years that when this table had this special food on it for Shabbos, and it elevated the table and all around it, as well as the food that's on it.
Thank you for sharing. On Shabbos, we receive something called a neshama yisera, which is literally translated as an extra neshama. So some people think that on Shabbos, on regular weekday, we have a neshama, and then on Shabbos, we get an extra dose of the neshama. Rabbi Beer holds that the neshama yisera simply is that the neshama is preeminent over the guf, that the soul takes precedence and takes priority over the body. The malachos of Shabbos are derived from the malachos of the Mishkan. Elimelech? Okay, I'll put you on. Okay, I'd like to welcome my chavrusa, Habacher Elimelech Wiseman from the Five Towns. Elimelech just had the privilege this Shabbos of attending an ufruf. An ufruf is a celebration before a wedding, and just like a wedding is a special union between Hashem, between husband and wife, so too Shabbos is a special union between Hashem and the Jewish people. Rabbi Beer points out that in Shir Shirim, which is an expression of Ava, expression of love, is an appropriate sefer to be said before Shabbos, and that is many people's minhag to say it before Shabbos, like Marashiv Moshe Katzin says before Shabbos, and it shows the close relationship of like a husband and wife between Hashem and the Jewish people. Also, when we say Lecha Dodi, that we say that we're coming to greet the bride, so we're further showing our relationship between us and Hashem. So we mentioned that the malachos of Shabbos are derived from the malachos of the Mishkan. The Mishkan was a special place that a person would come to it, Mishkan Beis Hamikdash, that a person would come to it and become drawn to its ruchnius, drawn to the spirituality, and allow a person to tap in and realize and focus on things that are truly meaningful. Now, going to the Mishkan or Beis Hamikdash requires actually going out of one's place and going to Yerushalayim, or to wherever the Mishkan was being held, to be able to tap into this source of ruchnius. Shabbos, Rabbi Beer says, is Hashem coming to us. We don't need to go to any special place. Maybe it can help, like my mother said earlier, going to Crown Heights was a special experience. Certainly being in an environment of Kedusha, but basically Hashem is coming to us on Shabbos. wherever we are, whether we're in Sharon, Woodmere, Boston, Eretz Yisrael, wherever we are, this special element that we had in the Mishkan and Beis HaMikdash that allows us to tap into what's truly meaningful in life, we have that every Shabbos wherever we are. I'll share a Maisa that Rabbi Gerko told me from the Tzemach Tzedek. He said there was once a Talmud of the Tzemach Tzedek who was thinking about moving to Eretz Yisrael, moving to Yerushalayim, and the Tzemach Tzedek heard this idea, but for some reason he thought that it wouldn't be matzliach, that it wouldn't be so successful, moving to Yerushalayim. So he told the chassid his chassid, he said, you can make wherever you are living now, you can make that place Yerushalayim. Now, meaning a person doesn't physically have to be in Yerushalayim a person doesn't have to physically be in Yerushalayim to take within him the elements of Yerushalayim. Rabbi Gerko told me that Yerushalayim comes from the words Ir Shalim, a city of Shalim. Shalim is from the word shlemus, which is completeness or wholeness. And Marashiv of Moshe Zev Kattenstein, he recently spoke about this Indian of Shalim. He said the Maharal says that shlemus is related to simcha, that if a person is whole or complete, this brings out an element of joy. And Rabbi Katzenstein said that shlemus, completeness, is disturbed by two potential aspects. One of them is by not doing the mitzvahs properly, by doing aveiros. And two is if we value too much or put too much emphasis into worldly pursuits. So what I think we can draw from here is that if Yerushalayim is Ir Shalim, the city of Shlemus, and Shlemus means that we're not doing aveiros, not doing things wrong, and we're not too involved in this world, so these are two things that are very benimta. We could very easily do this wherever we are, whether we're in Sharon or Woodmere or Boston, wherever we are. We can take this element of Yerushalayim and make it be present wherever we are by trying to do the best we can to fill the mitzvahs and not do the aveiros and not being too involved in this world. Do we have any comments so far?
Term Hashem, in place of Yerushalayim, I had that same experience, as you know. I was in Jerusalem and I had a connection with Hashem, and I realized, well, God is everywhere, so God is going to be in Connecticut when I go back home. For me, that was a link to continue going to Shabbos morning services, and the rest is history.
Thank you for sharing. One of the aspects we mentioned in Kiddush is Zecher L'Tzias Mitzrayim. So Rabbi Bira is wondering, what is the connection between Shabbos and Yitzias Mitzrayim? Rabbi Bira says, when we left Mitzrayim, we left physical and spiritual servitude to the Egyptians. And on Shabbos, we also have this ability, if we feel like during the week we became too tied down with being involved in this world during the week, that on Shabbos allows us to refocus and leave that, so to speak, bondage. Also, when we left Mitzrayim, we became a nation, and we got our purpose as a people. And that led to Matan Torah, when we received the Torah. Spiritually, on Shabbos, we can tap into what we truly need, what our existence is truly about as Yidden, as Jews, and to be able to think about how we can emulate Hashem and how we can perform mitzvos. And performing mitzvos is one way of emulating Hashem. Like, for example, Hashem is gracious and kind, so by giving tzedakah, a person emulates Hashem. Shabbos creates, this time we spend on Shabbos can allow us to frame what we're doing the whole rest of the week. Shabbos can create focus and goals for our hours of labor during the week. Because on Shabbos we think about things that are important to us and can give perspective to whatever we may be involved in. And as you've spoken about in the past, there's a wide framework to avodas Hashem, to what's considered serving Hashem. It can be learning working, involved with family, involved with other people. There's a wide framework, a wide prism. So on Shabbos, when we give meaning to all of those things that we do during the week, then we can uplift our labors during the week. Maharshiva of Moshe Zev Katzenstein, he says an interesting perspective on Shabbos Menucha. He says that actually Shabbos Menucha is born out from Limud HaTorah. That Shabbos, the Menucha we get on Shabbos, the special perspective we get on Shabbos, stems from the Torah learning that we do. I was speaking with my chavrusa, Elimelech, about where exactly is the learning coming from. Is this the learning that a person does during the week, or the learning that a person does on Shabbos? But we agreed that all types of Torah learning that a person does helps give a person this perspective of Shabbos Menucha. Do we have any comments so far? Menucha is, according to Rabbi Beer, Shabbos Menucha means that a person feels a certain sense of tranquility and serenity on Shabbos. Now that we've phrased somewhat about what Shabbos Menucha is and what are some elements we're supposed to tap into on Shabbos, so now Rabbi Beer turns to discussing how exactly we're supposed to spend our time on Shabbos in order to tap into Shabbos Menucha. So he brings from the Sforno. The Sforno says that when we learn and daven on Shabbos, this allows Shabbos to be Shabbos Hayom LaHashem. Shabbos is a day for Hashem. Next, Rabbi Beer brings a kasha from the Beis Yosef. So, taking on what the Sforno brought out as being a true point, that part of Shabbos is learning and davening. So, what's this dichotomy of part learning and davening and part increasing in physical delights, like eating delicious foods, or being involved in relationships? So, what exactly is this duality of Shabbos? So, Rabbi Beer is going to come to explain. Rabbi Beer understands from the Radak on the pasuk Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos Tov L'Chodos Hashem that on Shabbos, when we're not doing the malachos, we're not doing the activities on Shabbos which are prohibited, then this gives us the time and mental space to be able to appreciate all the gifts that Hashem gave us. For example, Kol Hashem B'Hadar, which you say on Friday night davening, that we see Hashem through His beautiful creations. Rabbi Beer emphasized one is looking at the beauty of the world, and I can remember taking a walk on Shabbos with Rabbi Miller, how he would observe the trees, especially now in the changing seasons, how he would look at the beauty in the Teva. And also, when we think about our role in the Klal Yisrael, and we think about statistically, this is something everyone knows, but it's worth thinking about and reminding how of the people who are chosen by Hashem to carry out the Torah and keep the mitzvos, such a small percentage of the world, and even smaller of that are people who are knowledgeable and fluent in the Torah to be able to appreciate the gifts that we have. So by thinking of these two things, thinking of looking at the beauty of what's around us and thinking about our role in the Klal Yisrael, this will help us enjoy Shabbos. Then Rabbi Beer went into a few different makoros to bring out this element of what's the topic of simcha on Shabbos. So in Bamidbar, Perek Yud, Pasuk Yud, Shabbos is called Yom Simchaschem, the day of our joy. Most of us are familiar with simcha as with Yom Tov, V'samachta v'chagecha. You should rejoice in your festivals. So what is this reference of simcha to Shabbos? In Devarim, Perek Chavches, Pasuk Mem Zayin, the famous pasuk about the Tochacha says that the reason why we got rebuked is because we were not Uvid Hashem b'simcha u'tuv levav. We didn't serve Hashem b'simcha. To some extent, if we haven't reached the top madrega of serving Hashem out of simcha, then perhaps that could be a cause that we didn't achieve our potential. The Ramban says in Bamidbar, Perek Yud Aleph, Pasuk Aleph, at the height of the Misonim, the complainers, is that the Klal Yisrael got anxious. Hashem provided everything that we needed from when we left Mitzrayim. Hashem provided us the man, the food, the be'er, mayim, the water, climate control. But Klal Yisrael was concerned that when we got to Eretz Yisrael that they would be on their own. So now we're going to tie back into the question we asked a couple minutes ago, is that what is the connection of Simcha to Shabbos? Rabbi Beer touched Simcha as being gladness, contentment, and serenity. If a person has these traits and appreciates all the gifts that Hashem bestows upon us, it will preclude any anxiety. So I think what Rabbi Beer is coming to say is that the chayd of the Misonim was that they didn't properly take time to appreciate all the gifts that Hashem was bringing, because if a person appreciates everything that Hashem gives them, then there won't be a concern for the future, because Hashem is taking care, a person will see that Hashem is taking care of us, and Hashem took care of us in the past and will continue to do so in the future. So that's why Shabbos is called Yom Simchaskan, because on Shabbos we increase our appreciation. This answers the Beis Yosef's kasha about what are we doing on Shabbos being involved in physical delights. It's because when we're engaging in food and drink and nice things for the body on Shabbos, it's allowing us to appreciate everything that Hashem gave us and thereby strengthen our relationship and appreciation to Hashem. So certainly on Shabbos, it's, a person can witness two people doing the same thing but totally for different purposes. One person may be eating in order to satisfy his bodily desires, and another person could be eating in order to be able to appreciate everything that Hashem gave him. And it's the same physical maisa, but the kavana, what's inside, is totally different between these two people. Does anyone have any examples from your Shabbos about how we can feel or appreciate or express our appreciation to Hashem on Shabbos? In Zmiris we say, Soadim bo levarich shalosh pa'amin, that we dine 3 times in order to bless. Or I should say it, Soadim bo, we dine on it, levarich shalosh pa'amin, to bless 3 times, referring to the 3 meals of Shabbos, Friday night, Shabbos day, and Shalosh Shabbos. And when, up until I think last week, I always understood that line in Zmiris to be talking about Birkas Hamazon, but I thought about recently, and I think it could be what my mother was saying, also that the brachos before the food, such as hamotzi, that when we eat in order to say hamotzi, or in order to say Birkas Hamazon, that frames our eating. So Rabbi Beer happens to be, I specifically asked Rabbi Beer what he holds the primary time for appreciating one's meal is on Shabbos. Is it during the meal, or is it during Birkas Hamazon? And Rabbi Beer holds that the primary time for appreciating one's food that he eats on Shabbos is during the meal, while eating. Rabbi Beer said that Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky used to say L'kavod Shabbos Kodesh, for the honor of the Holy Shabbos. He used to say this before every bite of the meal on Shabbos. This is a very high madrega of mindfulness. I think a more appropriate, more fitting for most of us, a madrega that we can hold on, is if we have kavana by the first bite of the main meal, of the Shabbos meal, this element of appreciation to Hashem for the food. I think that would be a great step and would help us fulfill, according to what Rabbi Beer is saying from the Beis Yosef, is like a primary goal of Shabbos, is the appreciating the physical delights that we have on Shabbos. An element that can't be overlooked is the element of Shmira Shabbos, of guarding and not doing the malachos on Shabbos. The Chafetz Chaim writes in his Hakdama to the Mishnah Berurah Hilchos Shabbos, Chelek Gimel, he writes that if a person does not study the laws of Shabbos, if a person doesn't know what separating is, sifting, cooking, building, if a person is not fluent in these areas, it's not possible for him to keep Shabbos properly. Hilchos Shabbos is a big sugya. Many people spend years learning Hilchos Shabbos, but there are Sfarim written in English. Eitz Chaim has some of these Sfarim. There's the 39 Malachos, which my dad and I learned. There's the Simcha Bunim Cohen, his Sfarim on kitchen and Muktzah and other areas. I know Eli Malach learned some of Simcha Bunim Cohen's Sfarim. That these elements are benimta and are able for us to learn. It's incumbent on us to make the effort, like we say in Zmiris, the whole pikud of Yachad Ligmor, that the ideal state is that we should be able to cover all of the relevant points for Shabbos, whether we're making it as a limud because of limud HaTorah, or for most of us to be able to know what to do and not to do on Shabbos, and what's the proper approach in the kitchen to many shilos. Then if we learn, like what Rav Zilberstein was suggesting, which I mentioned in the beginning, 2 halachos on Shabbos, then over time we can make headway and truly be able to celebrate Shabbos properly. And the biggest way of doing that is by keeping the malachos and not doing the forbidden activities on Shabbos. One more nekuda about the perspective for eating on Shabbos is that since eating on Shabbos is an element of expression of one's hakaras hatov to Hashem, one's gratitude to Hashem, so therefore it comes out that he's undergoing some sort of a bonding process with Hashem. By expressing his gratitude, he's becoming more one with Hashem. So it's worthwhile to keep in mind that while eating the meal on Shabbos, certainly we can have an enjoyable time, especially when we appreciate the people around us, but to some extent we can recognize that we're undergoing a special process of coming closer to Hashem. Next, Rabbi Beer brings Brisker Rav, which I also saw brought in Rav Shimshon Dam Pinchas Sefer on Shabbos. It's entitled Shabbos Kodesh. The Brisker Rav says as follows: before Matan Torah, before we receive the Torah, Klal Yisrael was given 3 prerequisites in Parshas Yisro. One is preparing themselves for the event of Matan Torah. 2 is clean their clothing, and Rabbi Beer says to regarb with beautiful clothing. And 3 is to go forth and greet Hashem. The Brisker Rav says on Shabbos we also do these 3 preparations. One is to, on Friday, on Erev Shabbos, when Shabbos is approaching, to anticipate with longing that Shabbos is coming. Rabbi Beer says that the Brisker Rav, I heard this before also, that the Brisker Rav would sit on his porch on Erev Shabbos. Someone who was as big of a massman as the Brisker Rav, someone who learned as much as he did, he took time on Erev Shabbos to sit on his porch and simply wait for Shabbos to begin. Now, many of us before Shabbos, especially Shabbos in the wintertime, are busy doing last-minute hachanos, last-minute preparations before Shabbos. Rav Pinchas writes, actually, the proper approach is to try to, again, it's a big avoda, but try to start a little earlier and complete one's Shabbos preparations so that the final few moments before Shabbos, before candlelighting and before Shkia, are simply spent waiting for Shabbos to arrive. This is based on the Rambam. Of course, if a person still has more preparations to do, he should do those preparations, but the ideal state is to be fully prepared for Shabbos at least a little bit before Shabbos, and to spend some time simply waiting, like the Rambam says, b'koved rosh, with a certain sense of present-mindedness, to be able to simply wait for the coming of Shabbos. This is one of the celebrations of Shabbos. 2 is wearing nice clothing. Dressing, Rabbi Beer says, when a person dresses nicely on Shabbos, this will help him be able to connect with Hashem. Rav Pinchas points out that this is especially true for women. He says for men, especially if a man is in shul already, so he's probably already dressed in his Shabbos clothes when Shabbos comes in. But for a woman who is getting ready for Shabbos, the ideal state, if there's enough time, is to change Rav Pinkus holds, is to change into one's Shabbos clothes, Shabbos dress, before lighting candles and accepting Shabbos. Because Rav Pinkus points out, some people think that just getting dressed for the Suda is enough, for the Friday night meal. But really, the Kedusha Shabbos, the holiness of Shabbos, and the presence of the Shekhinah comes in from candlelighting if a woman accepts Shabbos when she lights candles. So therefore, it's appropriate to greet the Shekhinah with one's nice clothes for Shabbos if there's enough time. But if there's not enough time, then for sure it's better to light candles before Shkia, before sunset, or sundown, I'm not sure which is the English term, before Shkia, and then change after. And then the third is when we go out to greet Hashem, we do this in L'chadodi. So Rabbi Beer says, if a person does these three preparations of waiting a short while before Shabbos for Shabbos to come, of changing into Shabbos clothes, especially at the outset of Shabbos, and going out to greet Hashem, Rabbi Beer says that Hashem will agree to be bonded with man. This will be shaykh, it will be possible to have this union between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we spoke earlier about Shabbos in Olam Haba. On Shabbos, Chazal say it's 1/60th of Olam Haba. Now, this may be a little bit contrary to what many people experience of Shabbos. I feel like many people experience a surge on Friday night, a surge of energy, surge of Kedusha, of tranquility, serenity, Shabbos Menucha. Actually, Rabbi Meir says, over the course of Shabbos, we build up our sensitivity regarding our relationship with Hashem. We become more in tune with being with Hashem as the course of Shabbos arrives. Maharishi from Muncie, Ram Braun, he shtalled a kasha, he said, or maybe more of a shaila, he said, why is the Shabbos day Kiddush called Kiddusha Rabbah, the great Kiddush? So the classic understanding is that it's a euphemistic term. Friday night Kiddush is deraisa, it's from the Torah. Also it involves two brachos. And Shabbos day Kiddush is only one bracha, it's from the Rabbanon. Its Shabbos day is not as great, so to give a little more chashivas to the Shabbos day Kiddush, we called it Kiddusha Rabbah, the great Kiddush. Rabbi Braun said a different taich. He said, Kiddusha Rabbah is actually literal. Shabbos day is the great Kiddush. On Friday night, when we're coming from the week and have a surge into Shabbos, then it's easy to make Kiddush, as we feel this sense of Kedusha, of spirituality. Shabbos day, we've already had a full night's sleep, and Shabbos is a little more worn into us, we're more accustomed to Kedusha. So it's harder to shtag when we're within the prism of Kedusha to go to a Nacha Madrega, to go to a next level of holiness. It's easier to do it on Friday when we're coming from Chol into Kodesh, but Shabbos, when we're already in Kodesh, to go from Kodesh into Viter Kodesh, into more holy, that is more of a challenge. And therefore it's called Kiddusha Rabbah, the great Kiddush, because how great is it for someone who's able to be within a situation of Kodesh and shtag and grow to a greater level of Kedusha. So I can't say that I have any practical elements for how we can do this, aside from just trying to apply ourselves to Shabbos, like we spoke about, learning, davening, appreciating what Hashem has given us. But hopefully we can see this as a goal, that our connection to Hashem should increase over the course of Shabbos. Rabbi Meir posed another question. Right? If we think about a sukkah, we don't say that a sukkah is a melech. We don't say that a shofar is a bachar. We don't say that daled minim is a basula. So why, if we don't usually refer to other mitzvos as being like a person, so why are we referring to Shabbos as a malka? Why is Shabbos being called a malka, a queen? Why is Shabbos being described as a person, and why specifically as a queen? So the answer to this is something we spoke about earlier, is that Shabbos Malka is because it's a special, like a marriage between us and Hashem. So therefore Shabbos is like a Malka, like a queen, someone who's married to the king. And certainly other mitzvos have an opportunity to connect us with Hashem, but Shabbos is in a special category. My chaver, Mechel Jacobowitz, told me from his Rosh Yeshiva that there was a certain calamity that happened in their yeshiva, not necessarily related to Shabbos, and the Rosh Yeshiva of Tzvi Kaplan made an enactment regarding Shabbos, because Tzvi Kaplan held that basically any time there's something to work on, we work on Shabbos. Shabbos in halacha is chomer. Someone who does not keep Shabbos is treated in a different category versus someone who does not keep other mitzvos. So Shabbos is a special category, and it represents our relationship of husband and wife before Hashem. Okay, so we've spoken about how hopefully we can steig from Shabbos, how we can grow from Shabbos by learning, davening, keeping Hilchos Shabbos, and appreciating what Hashem has given us. Now, let's think about what are we left with when Shabbos leaves? When the Shabbos Menucha is on her way out, the Neshama Yisera is departing, and we're going back into the week. What are we left with? When I was in Muncie, there was a shul that had a certain policy that Balabatim, the members of the community, would speak on Friday night. And one of the Balabatim, Erlich Yid, his name was Moshe Kravitz, once got up and said a kasha from Tzadok HaKohen. Tzadok's kasha is, we find that we use wine for celebratory events. Chasana, bris, kiddush. So how is it appropriate that on Motzi Shabbos, when Shabbos is leaving, when the Neshama Yisera is departing, the Malka is departing, we're now making Havdalah over wine? How is it fitting that we're using wine, which is something that we enjoy, that is sweet? How is it that we're using wine to commemorate the departure of Shabbos and the ushering in of the Sheshis Yimei HaMaisa, of the 6 days of labor? Why are we using wine? Rav Tzadok answers that if we've been koneh, if we've acquired the messages of Shabbos that we've spent time speaking about today, of being able to connect to Hashem through learning and davening, that Shabbos Menucha is born out from Limud HaTorah, that we appreciate the gifts that Hashem gave us, then the departure of Shabbos is not a sad event. The departure of Shabbos we can do with simcha, because we realize that now that we focus on what life is truly about and our connection with Hashem, and we're able to frame with perspective our labors during the week, we can go into the week with simcha, with joy, knowing that just like Shabbos was Hayom Hashem, that we're going to make the Sheshis Yimei HaMaisa, the 6 days of labor, have it be somewhat Shabbostic, in that we're focused on what Shabbos is about, which is Yichad Hashem, and focus on the oneness of Hashem. If we've ingrained the messages of Shabbos properly, then it's a simcha, it's a joy when we are able to carry out the message that we learned on Shabbos into the week. Now, when we talk about Shabbos Menucha, I was at one of my Rebbeim's house. His name is Rabbi Dunner, and they would sing a song of Shabbos Menucha. And I think singing is one of the things that we can appreciate on Shabbos. The formal zmiras that are written in the benchers, they're very beautiful words, and they really bring out a lot of important points about Shabbos. Or just a hum or a nigun. So with this, may we be zocha to experience true Shabbos Menucha, to live Shabbos to the fullest. Shabbos is 1/7 of our lives, and it's our main avoda from now until Pesach time, which is the next Yom Tov D'Oraisa. So hopefully we can take advantage of these winter Shabbosim to learn, daven, appreciate what Hashem has given us, and we should be matzliach in our avoda, waiting a few moments before Shabbos to arrive, and just waiting for the outside of Shabbos, changing into clean clothes, and going out to greet the Shabbos Malka. And we should be zochat to experience true Shabbos Menucha. Thank you for watching.